Hello, everyone. Just making sure that my stream is all okay. There's so many elements to be checking before going live. And I'm so sorry. I really want to apologize for missing the last two Saturdays. It was incredibly hectic, and I absolutely had no idea how to uh, take the live because I was just so busy. So, but I'm very glad that we could do it this week because I want to take the last live next week and finish off the series on a high point. So, hi everyone, and welcome back to the Writing Fundamentals series. If you're joining live, thank you for being here. And if you're watching the replay, you're very welcome as well. This is live number 9, and today we are talking about something that's invisible and yet absolutely foundational to good writing, the rhythm of prose. Before we begin, I want to give you a bit of context for why this session matters so much. But before that, I would like to quickly introduce myself. My name is Heena, and I am an award-winning author, developmental editor, a creative writing coach, and publishing consultant. And I'm also the founder of Verbatic Media. It is a boutique publishing house which caters to only very few authors. We are going to be starting our self-publishing this year. So far, we've published one book because last year only we went in operation. And this year we are coming out with another 3 books. And then the doors are open for other authors to take our self-publishing services as well. I'm also the founder of the Reading Bud. It is my book blog, and it's not just any book blog, it is the book blog that made me who I am today, an award-winning author and an editor. The Reading Bud is almost 13 years old now, and I'm very, very proud of it. I am a cat mom and a cat rescuer, and I'm also an animal activist. I am a philosophy and psychology aficionado, and I love teaching writing. So here I am in the 9th episode of Writing Fundamental series, my free live series for the writers who want to learn writing and make their manuscripts better. I am the author of 2 books. Deceived was published in 2017, and The Manor, which was published last year. You can see the details of these 2 books on the screen. I'm coming out with my 3rd book and my first nonfiction book, a book on the craft of writing, that is the art of storytelling. It is going to be coming out sometime in February. I'm just in the last throes of finishing the book and the production. So it is going to be coming out. At least the advance booking and everything has started, and the ARCs are going to be rolling out in February. So this is all there is in the art of storytelling, from idea to manuscript, the 5D character framework. This is my personal framework. The story architecture, we are going to be talking about story structure and everything that makes the plot work. Then identifying your story's core idea. Uh, the vein system, again, it is my own very own system that I'm going to be sharing in the book. How to discover your authentic voice, weaving theme and emotion in your story, and how to become a complete author by learning about how to uh, pursue the 2 main publishing routes in India, that is traditional publishing and self-publishing. Everything will be contained in the book, so it is going to be a book which will teach you everything from the conception of an idea to being a published author. You can pre-book the book now. I will be sharing the link after I'm done with the live. Actually, I have to share a lot of links on the live descriptions, and I will definitely get around to it now that I have completed more than half the projects that I had been working on for the last 3 months. So now I'm gonna get the time and I'm gonna be putting up all the links. So getting back to today's session or lecture, as I like to call them. As I said earlier, before we begin, I want to give you a bit of context for why this session matters so much. Most writers I work with don't struggle because they lack ideas or they are not good writers. They don't struggle because they can't properly write sentences, and they definitely don't struggle because they don't care enough. Obviously, they do. So, all the writers mostly struggle because their writing doesn't move the way they want it to. They're often told things like, it's well written, but slow. Something feels off. I like it, but it didn't grip or hook me. And those comments are incredibly frustrating, to say the least, because they are vague. What's usually happening in those cases is not a problem of plot or language, it's a problem of rhythm. When we read a book we love, we rarely stop to think about why it works. We just know that it does. We keep turning pages, we feel emotionally engaged in that book, and we don't get tired halfway through. That experience is created by rhythm, by how sentences, paragraphs, scenes, and emotional beats are arranged on the page. And yet, rhythm is one of the least talked about craft skills. So, today's session is not about fancy language or poetic prose or writing that sounds impressive. We'll be discussing control over pacing, tension, and the reader's experience. If you've attended some of my earlier lives on point of view, scenes, dialogues, or show versus tell, this session is where all of that will be coming together. That's why I've planned this for the last. I had planned this for the last. Here's what I want you to know before we begin. This is not an intuitive, either you have it or you don't thing. Rhythm is learnable, teachable, and most importantly, fixable. It can absolutely be fixed in your manuscript while you're doing the revision. By the end of this live, I want you to understand why your writing sometimes feels slow or flat, be able to identify where rhythm breaks down, and walk away with a practical way to fix it. We'll be talking about pacing at different levels, why tension doesn't mean constant action, a simple push pull framework you can use immediately, common rhythm mistakes that writers make, and I'll also do a short live editing demo so you can see how this works on the page. So, if you have a notebook, keep it close. If you have a draft you are working on, even better. Let's get started. So, what do we mean by the rhythm of prose? Before anything else, I want to discuss what do I mean by TROP or trop, as I call it. That is the rhythm of prose. Because if we don't get this one thing right, everything else I say today will either feel abstract or confusing. When I say rhythm of prose, I'm not talking about fancy writing or poetic language. And I'm definitely not talking about purple prose. What I'm talking about is something much more basic and much more powerful. I'm talking about how your writing moves. Most writers think in terms of only in terms of plot, characters, theme, and maybe even structure. But very few writers think about the movement of writing. And yet, as readers, that's exactly how we experience a story. As a reader, we do not know about the plot that has gone in the book, the act, which structure has been used to put together the entire story, or which beats are coming where, or which hooks are used where. No, as a reader, all we can follow and feel is the movement of the narration. And yet, we don't talk about it. We don't experience a novel as a checklist of scenes. We experience it as a flow. Sometimes the story pulls us forward, sometimes it makes us pause, and sometimes it tightens our chest. Sometimes it lets us breathe. That feeling, that invisible push and pull, is the rhythm of prose. Rhythm is what the reader's body feels. This is important, so listen closely. When your prose is working, the reader's eyes move faster or slower. Their breathing subtly changes and they feel restless or maybe calm or uneasy or absorbed. Mostly when it comes to my fiction, the readers generally feel restless and uneasy and absorbed and very uncomfortable because I write dark fiction. And so, and they feel all these feelings without knowing why exactly they're feeling it. And when the rhythm is off, the reader gets tired or bored or distracted or suddenly start checking their phone. It mostly happens when your writing feels flat, which is exactly we are going to learn today to correct. Let us look at why good writing still feels flat. This is something I see constantly as an editor. Writers come to me and say, people say my writing is good, but something is missing. Or my beta readers say it's well written, but slow. Or my favorite, my friend read a book and says it did not hook me. 9 times out of 10, the problem is not the plot, and the 10th time it is the plot. But mostly, it is not the grammar that you're using, it is not your vocabulary, it is the rhythm or the movement of the prose. The sentences are maybe all the same length, or they repeat often, the structure of the sentence repeats often enough to make the reader feel bored. Or the paragraphs all feel kind of the same weight. I'll explain this to you in a minute. Every scene is given the same emotional intensity, and so the reader uh, can't figure out where the tension is high and where the tension is low. So the writing becomes extremely monotonous, technically correct, but emotionally it feels flat. And that is what a lot of readers do not know how to put into words. So, what they end up saying is that something about the writing feels off. Now, let me clarify one thing. Rhythm is not equal to prose, but they are very closely related. Now, let's clear up a very common confusion. Pacing and rhythm are related, sorry, but they are not the same thing. Think of it this way. Pacing is how fast the story moves, and rhythm is how that speed changes. You can have a fast paced story with terrible rhythm, or a very slow story with excellent rhythm. A literary novel can feel gripping, and a thriller can feel exhausting. Why? Because rhythm is about, if I can use a physics term here, momentum. That is exactly what rhythm creates in a novel. Now, prose is more like music than architecture, simple architecture. I often say this to my editing clients. A story is not a building, It's not meant to be admired from the outside. A story. Now remember, a plot is a building that we build step by step, but not a story. After you have the plot, we have to focus on the story. And the story is quite closer to music because uh, you don't experience music by analyzing the notes. You simply experience it and enjoy it. You do not have to be a big musician to be able to appreciate good music. The same way, you do not have to be excellently well versed in the elements of how a novel is made in order to be enjoy a good novel. You experience a novel by feeling the movement, the rhythm. The long sentences are like sustained notes, the short sentences are like beats, paragraph breaks are like pauses, and the white space, which no author that I have met yet knows about, is silence. And silence, by the way, is just as important as the sound. If everything is loud, then nothing is. If everything is fast, nothing feels urgent. Let's see why writers accidentally kill rhythm. Most writers kill rhythm by accident and for very understandable reasons because we are taught to explain things clearly and in detail, be thorough, not leave things out, and prove that we know what we are doing. So we over explain, over describe, and overthink things a lot. And when we do that, the rhythm gets destroyed. Remember this: the reader does not need to know everything at once. The reader needs to feel something first. Now that we understand what rhythm is, at least I hope you guys understand. So let's talk about pacing and we'll understand rhythm in a much, much better way. Let's talk about pacing. Most writers do think about pacing. I'll give you that. It's just not always in the right way. When writers say, my book feels slow, what they usually mean is something feels off, but I don't know where. And the reason they don't know where is because pacing is not one thing, it actually operates at three different levels. If you try to fix pacing only at one level, you will keep feeling stuck and the book will continue to feel off. Let's look at the three levels at which pacing operates. Level one is macro pacing, that is the story level. Macro pacing is the overall movement of the story, where the story accelerates, where it deliberately slows down, how tension rises and falls across the entire book. This is where writers often make their first major mistake. They think if I keep things intense all the time, readers won't get bored. Um, I recently worked on a book with an author, and they were kind of doing this mistake. They were giving each and every single thing so much weight. For example, if a little discovery was made, it was given so much weight, even though it did not have any major impact on the main plot. And so, what it did was when the main reveal came, it did not land because that main reveal literally had the same carried the same weight or had the same intensity that the other non-relevant reveal had. And so the reader, as a reader, I felt very exhausted by, and this didn't happen just once or twice, it happened on every single second page of the book. And imagine when you're reading a book that's, say, 350 pages, it gets very exhausting and you do not like the book then. So do not try to keep things intense all the time. Readers will start getting bored. But that's not how writing works, right? Constant intensity is not gripping. If you will say that's not how writing works, it has to be intense, I would say yes, but not always. If there are peaks, they are peaks because then we have valleys as well. If you're not going to have any valleys, what are the peaks even good for, right? Okay, sorry, my page changed. Just give me 1 second. I was on Canva, right? So think about this. If a book is high stakes from page 1 to page 300, there is no contrast, no escalation, and no emotional discovery. So nothing feels special. Stories need a build up, they need release, they need tightening, and they do need breathing room as well. Even thrillers need very quiet, silent, subtle moments. A common macro pacing problem is, and this is something I see in a lot of manuscripts, the opening is slow and very heavy, the middle is kind of overloaded, and the ending is rushed. And I'll tell you what, this is so common. Most of the writers make this mistake. Just kind of, if you can note this down, just check if your manuscript has a very slow or heavy opening, a very overloaded middle, and a very rushed ending. And this is basically, I'm talking about if you split your manuscript into three act structure. Okay. And why does this happen? Because writers spend too much time setting up, too much time explaining, and then suddenly realize they're running out of pages. So they rush. That's a macro pacing issue, and you cannot fix it by cutting adjectives. Now, let's move on to level 2, meso pacing, also known as the scene level pacing. Scene level pacing is where things start getting really interesting. Every scene has a purpose, a tension curve, and an emotional curve. But most writers treat all the scenes the same way. They give equal length to each scene, equal intensity to every scene, and equal detail to every single scene. And that, what does it do? It completely flattens the story. Think about it. A scene where someone discovers a secret should not move at the same pace as a scene where someone is making tea and thinking about life. And yet, on the page, many writers write them the same way. They'll have the same paragraph length, the same introspection, and the same kind of sentence flow. Now, that's a pacing mismatch. Scene pacing, remember, is about stakes, as we've clearly learned in the analogy of a scene. Now, here's a very useful question to ask yourself. What is at stake in this scene? Just give me 1 second. My fan is on and I'm starting to feel very cold. So let me just switch it off. Yes. Sorry. So, as we have learned in writing fundamentals, one of the lives, anatomy of a scene pacing is about stakes. So, here's a very useful question that I was talking about to ask yourself. What is at stake in this scene? Keep on asking yourself in each and every single scene. We are not talking about the story, we're talking about scene. If the stakes are high, the pacing should tighten, the prose should compress, the rhythm should become sharper. If the stakes are low or reflective, the pacing will loosen. The prose will need to breathe, and the rhythm can stretch. When scene pacing and stakes don't align, the reader feels it immediately, even if they can't explain why. Now, the third level of pacing is micro pacing or the sentence and paragraph level pacing. This is where most pacing problems can actually be found. And this is the level most writers completely ignore. Micro pacing is the sentence length, the sentence structure, the paragraph breaks, and the white space on the page. Remember, the reader's speed is controlled by your sentences. Long sentences slow the reader down. Short sentences speed them up. Dense paragraphs will make them feel heavy, and white spaces will help create momentum. Now, why does this matter so much? Because you can have a perfectly structured plot, brilliant characters, and super high stakes, and still lose the reader because your micro pacing is off. If every paragraph looks the same, if every sentence flows the same way, same length, same cadence, and has the same structure, if nothing changes on the page, the rhythm becomes predictable. And predictability of rhythm kills tension. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine reading this in a chase scene. He ran down the corridor thinking about his childhood, the mistakes he had made, the fear clawing at him as he remembered his mother's voice, the way regret had followed him through his life. Does this feel like he's being chased or it is a very high tension scene? No. This is technically fine, but rhythmically it is completely off. It is quite literally terrible at the moment. Now compare this, what you see on your screen, to this. For a second, just notice the difference of white space on the page. The white space is more in the second example, and that is how your brain knows that it is going to be a high intensity scene. So now we have, he ran, the corridor narrowed. He could hear the footsteps behind him, and then he came crashing to a halt the moment his dead mother's voice called his name. And then you're like, oh, what happens next? See, it's the same scene with different rhythm, and because of the different rhythm, it has completely different impact on the reader. So why writers resist micro pacing? Writers resist this level spacing because it feels extremely mechanical. It feels kind of something that editors do. And it, on the surface, I think a lot of writers feel that it is just too small to matter. But as you can see, how many sentences in total are there in the entire book. So you cannot overlook a sentence level structure problem. So this is actually where professional level writing happens. Readers don't experience your outline, they experience your sentences. Pacing is not just a one level problem. As we have just seen, it is a three-level problem, and most pacing issues are not fixed by, therefore, cutting scenes randomly, adding action everywhere, or panicking. So, when you are asked by an editor or a friend to fix the pacing of your book or manuscript, now you know you have to work on it on three different levels, not just one level, three different levels. That is the overall story. You need to ask yourself if the overall story is breathing correctly, is each and every scene moving at the right speed, and are my sentences controlling the reader's experience? Now that we understand where pacing operates, the next question becomes even more important. How does pacing actually create tension, especially in scenes where nothing big is happening? So let's talk about tension. Because one of the biggest myths in writing is to keep readers engaged, something must always be happening. That is not true. And most writers interpret that this something happening as action, conflict, drama, or maybe extremely loud moments in the story. So they think if there's no fight, no argument, or no big reveal, their scene will be boring. That belief causes more pacing and tension problems than almost anything else. Now let's talk about action and tension. Action and tension are not the same thing. Action is external, tension is internal. You can have a car chase with zero tension or two people sitting at a table with unbearable tension. The difference is uncertainty. Tension comes from not knowing what will happen, what someone will choose, what information will be revealed, or what the emotional cost will be. That is how you create tension. If the outcome feels predictable, the tension completely dies, even if the scene is loud or heavy with action. Why quiet scenes often feel slow? This is something I hear from writers all the time. My slow or quiet scenes feel boring. They're not boring, they're undercooked. Quiet scenes fail when everything is explained. Emotions are told instead of shown. Emotions are resolved too quickly, and there is no unanswered question. When nothing is left hanging, the reader relaxes too much, and relaxed readers stop turning the pages. Tension is created by withholding information, not adding it. Writers often try to add more thoughts, more explanation, more description, more backstory. But tension is usually created by withholding the information, withholding emotional resolution, withholding clarity. Let the reader who lean forward. If you explain everything, there is nothing to lean forward for. Now, so this is what tension is. I don't think, okay. Let us look at the types of tension. Just a second. I don't have a slide for it, so please make a note of it if you can. Let's quickly just look at the types of tension. There's emotional tension, psychological tension, relational tension, and situational tension. Main four types of tension. Emotional tension is when a character wants something but can't admit it. Psychological tension is when a character suspects something but doesn't yet have proof. Relational tension is when two characters know something is wrong but refuse to name it. And third, okay, not able to hold my finger like that. Okay, and fourth, situational tension is a decision that must be made. So a decision has to be made, but every option has a cost. Notice something, none of these actually require exposition. Now, let's see how rhythm controls tension. Tension isn't just what you write, it's how long you stay with a particular moment in a scene. If you rush through a revelation, a realization, or a confrontation, the tension, I'm so sorry. I actually did not get too much sleep last night, so now I'm feeling a little heavy-headed and sleepy. Anyway, so if you rush through a revelation, a realization, or a confrontation, the tension completely collapses. If you linger for too long, the moment kind of deflates. So, rhythm is what decides when to slow down, when to cut away, and when to let the silence do the work. Now that we understand tension, the next question becomes how do we manage this rhythm on the page without exhausting the reader or slowing the story down? This is where I really do not want to be on camera. Anyway, so this is where my push and pull technique comes into play. If you remember only one thing from today, let it be this one. I call it the push pull technique. What push actually means? And no, it's not just action. Okay. A push is anything that moves the story forward. So it's a push. That includes physical action, yes, but also new information, a realization, a decision, a shift in power, a change in friendship, and a line of dialogue that alters the situation. Push changes the state of the story. Before the push, things were one way. After the push, they are not. And that change is very important. Now, what pull actually means and why writers undervalue it. Now, let's talk about pull. Pull is what gives weight to the push. Pull is where the story slows down, pauses, allows emotion to surface, and allows meaning to form. Pull includes internal response, emotional processing, reflection, hesitation, silence, and the aftermath. Pull answers the question, so what? Without pull, push will feel empty. Now, why do writers tend to overuse one and ignore the other? Most writers naturally lean towards one side. Some writers are push heavy, a lot happens, scenes move fast, but nothing feels deep. Other writers are pull heavy, beautiful introspection they'll have, rich emotional language, but the story doesn't move. Neither is wrong, but both are incomplete. Good rhythm lives in the conversation between the two. Now, push pull is how readers stay engaged. Here's something important to understand about readers. Readers want two things at the same time, to know what happens next and to understand why it matters. Push satisfies curiosity and pull satisfies emotion. If you only satisfy one, the reader eventually disengages. Now, let's look at push pull at a scene level. Now, as you can see on the screen, I've shared, sorry, I have shared a scene with you which is well rhythmed. So I'm going to show you where is push and where is pull. Something happens, that is push. The character reacts, that is pull. Something else happens because of that reaction, that is the cause and effect chain, is being activated here. So we have push, and the emotional cause becomes clear. That will be your pull. If a scene feels off, ask where am I pushing, where am I pulling, where am I doing neither? And you'll have your answer. The third one is usually the problem. Now, the push pull at the paragraph level. This technique also works within scenes. A paragraph that delivers information is push, and a paragraph that explores its impact is pull. You can even use paragraph breaks to control this, maybe a sharp line, or maybe then a pause or a reflection. This will be your rhythm. Push pull at the scene level. Now, this is where things get interesting. Short sentences often function as pushes because they move us forward. Longer layered sentences often function as pull because they slow us down. You can literally control the writer's breathing with this, and once you see it, you'll never miss it. Here's an example. Imagine a character hearing bad news. Look at your screen. In a push only version, we will have the news is delivered, the character responds, and the scene ends. It's effective, but thin. Let's look at pull only version. Pages of emotional processing, replaying memories, and analyzing feelings. It'll be deep, but stagnant. Now, here's a balanced version for you. News arrives, push, shock and denial, pull. A decision is made, push, fear resurfaces or surfaces, pull. That's narrative rhythm. That's the momentum that we need. Remember, if a scene feels slow, look for missing push. If a scene feels hollow, look for missing pull. If a scene feels exhausting, look for a lack of variation. This is how you revise a draft for rhythm or momentum of narration. Now let's look at some of the common mistakes that kill this momentum or rhythm. I would like to take a minute ka break. I will be back, so I'm just gonna put everything on pause. You can also just grab a cup of coffee or something and come back in just 1 minute. Oh, no, no, no. 1 second. I had actually put it on. Is it recording me without my audio? I wouldn't want that. Okay. Okay, so I'll have to start doing this again. Okay, let me just 1 minute. I need to mirror my this thing again. Yes. Perfect. Perfect. I think I'm coming down with something. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Okay, so now let's talk about common mistakes that kill rhythm. Now, these are habits almost every writer has at some stage. I see them in first novels, I see them in drafts of experienced writers. I even catch myself doing them in early drafts. So don't worry. Once you learn to identify the mistakes, it means you can then start working on revising them. Mistake number 1, sentences that all sound the same. This is probably the most common rhythm problem. Your sentences may be grammatically correct, they may even be elegant, but if they all are roughly the same length, follow the same structure, or have the same flow, your prose will start to feel flat. Not bad, but flat. The reader's brain gets comfortable, and comfort is the enemy of attention. Rhythm comes from variation. Long sentences slow us down. Short sentences snap us awake. If everything flows smoothly, nothing will stand out. Remember. Mistake number 2, big, dense paragraphs everywhere. Paragraphs are pacing tools. Long paragraphs tell the reader, settle in, this will take effort. That's fine sometimes. But when every paragraph is long and dense, the page itself becomes very heavy, especially on screens when a reader is reading ebooks. Remember, white space is control. A single line paragraph can hit harder than a full page if used intentionally and correctly. Mistake number three, overwritten introspection. This one is very common. Writers want to show depth, they want to show emotional intelligence, they want to explore the character's inner world so much so the character thinks and thinks and thinks and thinks some more. The problem is not introspection, the problem is introspection without any movement. If the character thinks about the same emotion repeatedly, circles the same ideas, or reaches no new insight, the story will stall. Good introspections should change something, either a perspective or resolve or understanding. Otherwise, it becomes narrative quicksand. Mistake number four, explaining the moment instead of letting it breathe. This is a very editor specific problem, so listen carefully. Something important happens in the story, and instead of letting it land, you end up explaining it. What it means, why it matters, how the character feels about it, what this will lead to. All in one go. Emotion doesn't need explanation. It needs space. If you explain too fast, you rob the reader of participation and experience. Let the reader sit in that moment. Let them feel before you interpret. Mistake number five, backstory at the worst possible time. This one hurts because it feels personal. Because writers often love these sections. The scene is tense, the stakes are high, something urgent is happening, and suddenly we are in the past. Not because the backstory is bad, but because the timing is so wrong. Backstory during high stakes moment kills the momentum completely. Unless done with a very, very deliberate hand, it's like hitting pause during a climax. The readers didn't forget the past, they just don't need it right now. Mistake number six, emotional intensity that never changes. This is very sneaky. Some writers write every scene at the same emotional pitch. Everything is heavy, everything is dramatic, everything feels important. But when everything is intense, nothing is. Readers need contrast. Quiet moments make loud moments louder. Soft scenes make sharp scenes sharper. Remember, emotional variation is rhythm. Mistake number seven, fear of cutting good writing. This is where rhythm problems often survive revisions. Writers think, but this is so well written, I can't cut it out. But I like this sentence, but this explains something. And you might be right. But as Stephen King famously likes to say, kill your babies. It doesn't matter how good a sentence is, or how amazingly you've written it, or how much you've uh, worked hard in writing that scene or sentence or paragraph. If it doesn't serve the plot, you'll have to cut it out. Rhythm isn't about individual sentences, it's about the timing of those sentences. Sometimes something needs to go. Not because it's bad, but because it is in the wrong place and at the wrong time. So cut it out. Now, how editors actually spot rhythm problems? Let me tell you something from the editor's point of view. I don't find rhythm issues by analyzing, I find them simply by feeling. I read a draft, and if I find any my attention drifting, I instantly know there's a problem. Or maybe I feel like skimming over a section, then again, there's a big problem. Or if I lose emotional engagement, I know there's a definite big problem. That's the rhythm breaking, the momentum being hampered. That's why reading is so important if you want to be a good writer. You need to exercise your reading muscles in order to be able to spot such intrinsic problems just by reading the first draft or any draft that you're given. You literally hear it in your mind when the writing starts dragging or wherever it is rushing. The most important thing here to remember is most rhythm problems are not drafting problems. They are revision problems, which means they are fixable. So don't worry about them when you are writing your draft or drafting, as I like to call it. Worry about it in revisions or you are revising, as I like to call it. Now that we've talked about what breaks rhythm, it's time to do the most satisfying part. Let's look at how rhythm evolves across a novel. Now that we've worked at the sentence level and the scene level, I want to zoom out because rhythm is not something you fix once and forget. It changes the story it changes as the story changes. And understanding this will immediately make your book feel more intentional. Rhythm if we are going to look at it like this from a zoomed out perspective, we are going to have four parts in the story: the opening, the middle, the climax, and the resolution. So, let's see how rhythm functions in the opening. It works as controlled intrigue. Openings are about invitation, not intensity. The rhythm here should be so. It should pull the reader in, it should create curiosity, and it should promise depth without overwhelming the reader. If the opening is too slow, readers will drift. If it's too fast, they won't carry it. Early rhythm is about controlled intrigue. You want the reader leaning forward, but not yet catching their breath. Not yet. Rhythm in the middle, that is sustained momentum. The middle is where most books struggle. Why? Because this is where consequences unfold, subplots deepen, and characters are tested. Rhythm here should alternate more deliberately. Push without exhausting, pull without stalling. This is where the push pull technique becomes essential. Too many reflection here feels indulgent. Too much action will feel repetitive. Balance is what is going to keep the readers invested. Rhythm near the climax, that is compression. As you approach the climax, rhythm naturally tightens. Sentences get shorter, paragraphs get leaner, scene transitions quicken. But this doesn't mean chaos, it means focus. You remove anything that doesn't directly serve the momentum. Rhythm here creates urgency without confusion. Rhythm in the ending is deliberate slowing. Endings are about absorption. The reader needs time to feel the impact, understand the cost, sit with what has changed. Rushing the ending is one of the most common mistakes. Let the rhythm slow down a bit, let the prose breathe, let the meaning settle. It obviously depends to a great extent on what kind of novel you're working on, the genre. So treat it like a rule of thumb and tweak it as per your genre, story, or plot structure. For example, in my novels, mostly resolution is not there. I finished the book right after climax. Or even if I have resolution, it's just a very quick one, which is kind of an open ending. So it completely, as I said, it completely depends on the genre you're working in. Now let's try to bring everything together on the page. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and show you a live demo. But before I share my screen, I want to clarify one thing. What I'm about to do is how editors think. It's kind of a skill that takes time to develop, but it can be developed easily with practice. And once you see it, you'll be able to do it in your own writing as well. So, as I edit, I don't want you to focus on the final version only. I want you to focus on what questions I'm asking. Now, Just give me 1 minute so that I can stop sharing this screen of my iPad and start sharing this screen of my Word. Mm, mm. Okay. I'm gonna move this behind and I'm gonna come here. Okay. Let me just switch this light off. Actually, this light is really hurting my eyes. That's why I've been feeling so heavy in my eyes. Okay, so let me share my screen now. Mm, yes. Perfect. So as you can see on your screen, I hope you guys are able to see it on your screen. Mm, second. Wow, I just increased. So I was on my live feed, just making sure that everything is okay, and all of a sudden I come here where oh, where is my meeting? Okay. Okay. Are you able to see? Not sure. Just let me check once. Okay, so I just had to double click on it. Oh my God. I'm so bad with tech. Okay. Okay. Um, Perfect. Okay. Oh my God. I really need an extra person sitting here, no? Anyway, okay. So I have my mic right. Yes. So, wow, my eyes are really paining. Just give me 1 second, please. I think maybe because of the light, my entire eyes are like shot. I don't know. Anyway, so I have the demo paragraph in front of you. Now, this paragraph is actually not bad at all. Let me just read the paragraph out loud for you. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the phone in her hand, trying to process what he had just said to her because it felt unreal and unexpected, and she kept replaying his words over and over in her mind, wondering how she had missed the signs and whether this was something she could have prevented if she had paid more attention earlier, even though a part of her already knew that nothing she did would have changed the outcome. It's literally one sentence. So, so nothing is technically wrong with this sentence. I would say a lot of writers might actually just write something like this and add it to their manuscripts and keep it then there when they send it for editing. Now, again, this paragraph is not bad. It is, in fact, grammatically fine. It's clear, it's emotional, but rhythmically, it drags a little. Now, if this is one of the beats where you are providing relief to the reader after a particularly action heavy scene or beat, then it is okay with just a little bit of tightening, I would say. But if there are more paragraphs surrounding the character's interiority and thoughts before and after this paragraph, this will have to be tightened. Now, if I am to be editing this, then this is how I will do it. I am going to copy and paste this here so that we do not, so that you can compare when we are done with the editing of the one below. Okay. I'm gonna name this edited sample so that you can compare both of them. Okay. And I'm gonna turn to reviewing so that you can see my mark changes. So we actually do not need that for now. So let's just focus on the paragraph that we are going to be editing. It's actually a sentence. Okay. Now, if I were to edit it and if I wanted to keep the tension a little tight here, I would get rid of a lot of things. Okay. So what we are going to try and do is kind of whatever can be said in fewer words, we are going to be first compressing and then we'll add something to give it the same emotional weight. Okay. Now, she sat on the edge of the bed. This is actually good because it's actually pretty good for imagery. She sat at the edge of the bed. Now, staring at the phone in her hand, okay, trying to process what he had just said to her. Now, I'm going to highlight this bit and let's see if we can kind of just add something here that is going to condense this. So they've just spoken, that means, right? What we can do here is the phone still warm in her hand. That means what? That they're just spoken. Now, I would like to preserve how it made her feel because but to her it felt how the words that he had shared felt unreal and unexpected. So I would like to preserve these, but I wouldn't want to be kind of, I don't know, we can actually compress this as well. But let's see. Yeah. And she spoke, replaying, and she kept replaying his words over and over in her mind. Okay, so we are going to be breaking this here because I really want to focus on like, see how we are focusing on bits. And she kept replaying his words over and over in her mind. This is good, but it's just too wordy, I think. Yeah, so what we are going to do is his words echoed in her head, feeling unreal and unexpected. And we don't need all this. See how we just trimmed that? And now, instead of this one big sentence here, we already have two full good sentences. They have different cadence, they have different rhythm. So our rhythm is getting improved here. Okay. Now, she wondered how she had, okay, we can make it she wondered. So because it was in a continuation of the sentence, so it was wondering how she had missed the signs and whether this was something she could have prevented if she had paid more attention earlier. Even though, again, this can be separated, right? So now let's focus on this. Wondering how she had missed the signs and whether this was something she could have prevented if she had paid more attention earlier. You can keep it like this. It is actually not bad. But if this had to be tightened further and if uh, we did not need a longer emotional beat here, what can be done is she tried to You're going to pinpoint as well, but trace kind of feels like she's tracing it back, right? So she tried to trace the moment it had gone wrong, because that's what she's trying to do. Maybe she'd missed some sign. Now I'm adding from my end, okay? Just to add the same emotional weight that we will get, or maybe more actually, if we remove all these words. Okay, so even though we are adding words here, it is intention, and they're still going to be shorter. And the overall thing is still going to be shorter than the earlier one. Okay? So once we do this, after adding some things, if I feel that what I have added is also running a bit long, because that's what happens when you're adding from stream of consciousness, you can again cut it up, edit it again, and trim it down. Now, she tried to trace the moment it had gone wrong. Maybe she had missed some sign or misinterpreted a silence. But the thought collapsed as soon as it formed. This is good. Because now we are coming to this. Even though a part of her already knew that nothing she did would have changed the outcome. She had done. Now we are going to keep this only. Nothing she. Okay, let's just take this only. Nothing she had done would have changed. The outcome sounds weird. So, this. Okay? She sat on the edge of the bed, the phone still warm in her hand. In her hand. Well, you can say hands, it doesn't matter. His words echoed in her head, feeling unreal and unexpected. She tried to trace now why we have changed the paragraph here, because I wanted to give a little beat of silence. She tried to trace the moment it had gone wrong. Maybe she'd missed some sign or misinterpreted a silence. But the thought collapsed as soon as it formed. Why? Because here we need immediacy, because as we said, the thought collapsed as soon as it formed. So that's why we are not going to change the paragraph here. And this is kind of a realization. That's why, again, a moment of beat. So paragraph change, and nothing she had done would have changed this. Now, I still think this could be changed further. But then there would be a lot of could and would. So we don't want that, right? We do not want to. We just want to keep it simple. So nothing she had done would have changed this. Actually, if you wanted to make it more dramatic, what you can do is, it was over. See, this is my kind of writing. So it was over. It's like with finality. Now, this is the same scene. It's literally conveying the same emotion. I do feel that this is better able to convey the emotion, at least the intensity of the emotion, but completely different movement, or as I like to call it, trop, that is the rhythm of prose. So we have completely different rhythm of prose here. See? What do you think about it? Now, so this is how we do the changes in our manuscript or the revisions in order to improve the. I'm going to stop sharing here. In order to improve the rhythm of prose. Let me just quickly save it and shut it. Yeah? Perfect. So, with that, our session comes to an end. If you remember nothing else from today, remember this. Rhythm is not just flowery prose or purple prose verse. Rhythm is the experience that the reader experiences or feels. It is how the reader lives inside your story. There are three core takeaways for you in today's session. From today's session. First, pacing exists at multiple levels. So if something feels off, ask where exactly, in the story, in the scene, or in sentences. Secondly, tension is not action, it's uncertainty, restraint, and timing. And third, push pull is your anchor. Whenever you feel lost, return to it. So basically, these three things, pacing, tension, and the push pull technique, is what forms the rhythm of prose. I want to end with something very important. If your first draft doesn't have good rhythm, that does not mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're doing it honestly. Rhythm is refined in revision. That's where craft lives. Now, in the next session, we are going to be discussing some very lighter writing related things, like how to create a writing routine and how to stick to a routine, how to actually commit to writing certain words, techniques to finish them in a day or a week or whatever your target is, and creating little writing rituals that are going to help you do it. So, we are going to be talking about everything else in the next session that is important for writing your book. Next session is going to be the last session in the Writing Fundamentals series, so do not forget to join me in it. For it, on next, oh, what am I? I'm kind of just mixing all my words because I'm actually, oh, so I can take off my specs. So I'm actually not feeling too well, but I was able to do the session. I'm just happy that I was able to get it out of the way because I really want to end the series this month itself. Because when next month, the art of storytelling is going to come out, I was thinking of kind of covering a couple of topics from it, maybe in live or maybe in other videos. We'll see about that. But I would definitely like to be talking about it. So do join me next Saturday, 11 a.m. Till then, keep writing. Oh, and if you have any doubts, please leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.